Welcome. The aligned living kind of feels like a radiocast. uh, Officially have 4 minutes until the call begins. And so I'm going to just sit and breathe for the next 4 to 5 minutes. And you're welcome to join me too. Welcome to the September Aligned Living Collective. This is the first Monday group call. There's going to be a Monday call and a Friday call, and they are different. And let me tell you how. So, I'm going to get to my aligned group. Show more. So, a Monday call is an integration gathering. So, I posed an integration question for today to the group. I'll get into that later. Going to be kind of just riffing on that for the next 45 minutes, boundary of 45 minutes. And with the intention of this being an hour experience, but the last 15 minutes are yours. And how I'm going to use them is to finish my integration question for today. And that's my invitation for you, is to utilize this time. The invitation is those in the collective can dial in at any point and just riff themselves on anything that's come up for them with this question, with the question from this week's integration pack, or anything else that they're wrestling with. An opportunity to just riff and be heard on that, and for it to be casual, friendly, and like a conversation, even if my part of the conversation is just listening to whatever you feel like expressing when you come in. The opportunity to speak into and out what is alive today. And so I kind of see this as kind of like a tantra radio station. I'm going to speak into my integration for today, but also what's been alive for me today, but also weave in the tantric teachings and how they've been valuable to me. And if someone does join in the conversation, maybe share a tantric insight rather than my opinion. This is all very mercurial right now. Episode 1, iteration 1. So enjoying all the teething experiences. Okay, so today's question was, thank you for being here, by the way, if you are listening. And like this one, you're joining me for a little bit of, hey buddy, let's not do that, okay? And we know that that's not cool. Thank you. Hey buddy. Kids. No, not quite comparing them. I know there's a big difference, but definitely been educational for me, being part caretaker of this conscious being. Today's title is The Gift of Your Eyes. How can your unique way of seeing and being in the world be the gift you came here to share? Each morning this week, look in the mirror and say, these are my eyes, this is my view, and it is beautiful. Share one moment of that view with someone else that day, a word of love, a reflection, an observation. That's what I've been sitting with today. A little bit of context. I shared in the group how I had an intrusive thought emotion come in yesterday around inadequacy. It represented itself. It's something that I've dealt with in multiple ways in the past, and yet still unexpectedly it can represent itself in my life. And that's not to say I don't think that it's still there, you know, and that I failed previously to deal with it. It's around being a smaller statured man and how I've carried that baggage a lot of my life, and particularly around how I view myself as a smaller man through the lens of the feminine eye, and ultimately through my own lens, because it is my experience, but how safety is inherent, I found in the conversations that I had previously with women about what they want, what they truly desire. And so that masculine sense of being able to create a space where a woman feels safe, to then be in her joy, her presence, her arouser, her playfulness. And it has been a belief of mine that that's part of the reason women desire bigger, taller, stronger men is because, yes, there are other elements to it. It could be aesthetically pleasing and physically to touch, kinesthetically pleasing. But ultimately, it's because they feel safe, they feel held, they feel protected. And the sense that most of, if not all of the women I've dated have been some slightly bigger and some sometimes quite considerably taller than me. Uh, and and so I'm less masculine as a result because of that discrepancy of size, this sense of not being able to protect in the same way. I think that's part of it. And also just, it's my own story, right? And I think this is the infraction point that came in yesterday is it is my own story and is there a biological truth to it? Anyway, so that's the context of where this came from. And I recognize how it was the impurity of individuality from tantric teachings at play, this desire to want to be something different than I am, that the attachment to the story that I've created about myself, creating my suffering, because I'm identifying with this limited perception of who I am, the story of a small man. And so today's whole integration question is about being able to be oneself, and in that being the gift that you came here to share. For me, I'll just read. I realize I'm very good at ignoring pain. That was an insight this morning during my practice. Whether physical, just train through it. Financial, just don't look at that email. Relationship, I couldn't possibly be the problem. I try my hardest to ignore pain sometimes, which then has resulted in getting that pain getting louder. So I finally actually listened to it. I did this with my body. I trained through pain. And I think for short periods it's okay, but when it becomes chronic, it becomes a chronic issue. I probably overtrained to a degree, varying degrees, for about 10 years. And now I'm dealing with an Achilles tendonitis issue and a hip flexor adductor issue. And so pain in tantric teachings being not something to ignore, but something to face towards, because it is an invitation, a pointer home. It is the thing that's trying to let us know we're out of alignment and where and how to resolve that. I inevitably do things that make the pain worse in an attempt to ignore it. Arguably, I'm doing that in this question. I've just come to realize. I don't feel like I haven't yet got to answering the question. Fluff. um, Make sure you address the issue at hand rather than going around it. The question at hand rather than ignoring it. So why did I write this? What has this got to do with your unique gift of being and seeing in the world? maybe we'll get to that. I inevitably do things that make the pain worse in an attempt to ignore it. I inevitably do things that make the pain worse in an attempt to ignore it. I inevitably do things that make the pain worse in an attempt. I don't know inevitably, but by ignoring the pain, I often make it worse. Instead, soften safely into the pain. My pain is my unique perspective to share. There it is. Thank you. The darkest hole I have found myself in, the pain I've understood, and how to find my way out of it. That path from pain to glory, my unique way of being, seeing the world, is my collection of scars and how they were best healed. My unique way of seeing the world is my collection of scars and how they've healed. So I think this really speaks into the difference between our self, small s, and our self, capital S. Okay, so in tantric teachings, there is the capital S self, which is the one divine consciousness that everything is. And the small s self is my expression of that, the anthology of me. That's the small s self. And we often forget we are the big S self experiencing the small s self through the lens of our perspective. And so the anthology that I have experienced in my life, that is my unique way of seeing the world. That is all of the stories and the dictionary of meaning that I have constructed when I see the world. And that is the gift that I get to share. The path from pain to glory, the scars and how they've healed. Gosh, okay, so this scar of small statured man. What's the next healing? What was the last healing? It was ISTA. So International School of Temple Arts. This is something that I brought to the collective there, got to speak about freely for, gosh, maybe 5-10 minutes, be heard by 40 plus people and received by the 3 facilitators and given feedback. If I'm honest, I don't quite remember the feedback or probably the experience as vividly as memory would. I was nervous and fearful of expressing myself about this topic. Being a small statured man is this sense of perpetual boy, but that doesn't have to be true, does it? What came up for me yesterday was, as a smaller man, I can't create the safety for my partner that they deserve. I can't provide that's I can't provide safety in that form. Like I can't be a 6 foot giant of a man because I'm not. And so I can't give the physical like expression that a partner might want to in that sense of feeling safe. You know, I have a very tall friend and he's a good he's a good man. And he says one of the things that he experienced when he was hugged by a bigger man was that sense of being held and how it's not something he often gets the opportunity to experience that enveloping sense of smothering's the wrong word, but embrace. And I felt the sorrow of not being able to offer that to my partner in the way a bigger man could. But the thing is, to get upset about that has an underpinning belief of wouldn't things be better if I were different? And that's an unsupportive narrative to adopt, I think. And I think Tantra would say the same. Um, what's true, essentially? Like rather than the story behind it, what's the actual truth? I'm as tall as I am, and I create safety through presence, if not through size. And that doesn't make me any less of a man. But what does it do? I went down this direction of believing that I needed to qualify all the reasons that I do love my size, but then I realized that's an attachment to the story just from the other end. And so how can it just be a dropping of the story whatsoever and just an enjoyment of what is? I haven't trusted my mind, not my capital S self, but my small s self, my ego, the story of me, the stories my mind tells, and the emotions they trigger. Stop ignoring the pain, face it. Share what solution I found to the pain I had, what worked for me, and how it could work for others, or at least support. Draw from the wisdom that lies in the principles behind action, rather the actions themselves. So I spoke to my dad today and I shared some of my concerns. He's been in a similar situation to me. And it wasn't about this topic, but about another, just to clarify. Uh, but what was important wasn't what he did, but the principles behind what he did. Um, conversation, perspective, challenging dialogue is not only what I do, it's who I'm becoming. Remain a marathon runner until you become a marathon finisher. Rest during races doesn't mean defeat if you keep going. Once ready, continue. Rest intense after intense racing. How can your unique way of seeing and being in the world be the gift you came here to share? I'm trying to tie in the question to the thing I'm trying to integrate. Oh, my unique way of seeing and being in the world is as a 5'2" man. That is my way of seeing the world. I can't see the world another way. And how does that get to be the gift? It's like it's not necessarily about the height, but about my perspective through life. And I've not felt unsafe. I've not felt unsafe in my size. Yet I have the belief that my size evokes lack of safety in a woman, yet it doesn't evoke a lack of safety in me. So my unique way of seeing and being in the world is a man trying to understand and trust himself and going on the journey of that, like how to do that, how to get on side with my mind so I can remain a marathon runner until I become a marathon finisher. There was this point of contention on the call with my dad where I said, you're not a marathon runner just when you finish and cross the finish line. You're I was a marathon runner all the way through, even beyond passing the finish line. I adopted the role of being a marathon runner even before I'd become a marathon finisher. But I think that's what got me to the finish line is I actually adopted the role of a marathon finisher before I was one. Like in my belief system, I was always going to finish that marathon. I didn't do it as quick as the idealized part of me wanted to do. However, that's because I decided to um, adopt the label of marathon finisher more than marathon runner. So I took several 5-minute breaks during my marathon so I could stretch, do some mobility, loosen up, feel better in my body so that I could get to the finish line. I'd rather sacrifice the 5 minutes to achieve finishing the race. Um, and stopping, I didn't consider myself to be failing. It was no, I'm resting so that I can get to the finish line. And there's something there about belief and what belief I want to adopt before I make it true. So I guess tying it back into what was alive with me yesterday is I am safe. It wouldn't be better if I were taller or bigger. I believe that it's great that I have the size that I do. No, what is it? What is the teaching here? Don't define yourself by something arbitrary. Like it's uh it's just a metric. It's not who I am. And suffering is the result of ignorance to the truth. Even if ah size is not a a proxy for safety. No. Size is a proxy for strength, but not always. Like I had this thought the other day. Well, today's mantra, these are my eyes, this is my view, and it is beautiful. These are my eyes. My view is de-blued, it's golden, and it is beautiful. How have the teachings supported me in dealing with this? Oh, my unique view is a gift. My unique way of viewing the world is a gift. My my small s self is a gift, and it is a gift that I have. This is the scars, the suffering that we are living through right now, that I'm living through right now, that is a gift. And because it's ultimately pointing to where I have over-identified with a limitation of myself. You know, I go, oh, I'm a small man, and that means I'm not safe for my partner, and they they wish that I was bigger than I am, and make these stories up that aren't true to support a belief that I don't want to hold. And okay, how how can you, knowing this, now create a better or more supportive belief? And the way to do that, I think, is to sit with it in silence and bring it to stillness and silence. So I'm going to do that for a little bit. I'm just going to breathe into it. How can your unique way of seeing and being in the world be the gift you came here to share? I had this thought yesterday. I had this thing occur where Tiffany's and my dictionaries were misaligned, where I read a sigh as anger, frustration, tiredness, and she was expressing a sigh as relaxation, relief, ease. And because of the misaligned dictionaries, it created a friction within myself of essentially, I'm not enjoying this because I'm labeling the sighs as negative, whereas for her, they were positive. And therein lies the value, or the danger of misaligned dictionaries cancel each other out. What could have been positive ended up as not. And so it came to, what if a sigh which is the opposite end of the spectrum to a moan? So one being relief, the other being enjoyment, pleasure. And this sense of, well, I'm going to endeavor to make all of my sighs end as moans. And that way I get the full spectrum of the experience. Uh, I don't know if you are a sigher or a moaner. But maybe there's an invitation there to experience the whole range of the spectrum. There's this teaching in Tantra that thoughts and emotions aren't opposite ends of the same. They aren't different. They are opposite ends of the same spectrum. So you can't have a thought without an emotion. One has a more linguistic expression, the other has a more somatic felt expression, but they are both on the same spectrum. They're both the same layer of consciousness, the heart-mind layer. The Tantrikas understood that they're opposite sides of the same coin, that thoughts and emotions are different. You can't have one without the other, so they must be the same thing. And the implication of that being, if you're expressing a thought but not honoring the emotion, you're only expressing a half of that energetic. And so it can get stuck. And that was me, very in my mind, but not in my emotion. And so there's been this big recalibration as I learn to express myself emotionally, but not be controlled by emotions. All of this to say, because they are opposite ends of the same spectrum, you get to enjoy the whole spectrum. So for me, how has this helped me? When I recognize a story, or actually, it's more this, when I it's going to go with burdened, but I don't want to ascribe that meaning to it. When I'm experiencing an emotion that I am struggling with, it means that there is a story behind it, a construct, which also then implies there is a belief behind that. And in understanding this, I get to consciously review what the belief is and then opt for a belief that is more advantageous for me. And that's what I'm doing with this. These are my eyes, this is my view, and it's beautiful. That's the belief that I choose to have rather than I'm not tall enough, I'm not big enough, I'm not safe enough. And how it gets to be beautiful. It's not about the height, it's about the perspective, the experience. I used to get lost in these loops for days, sometimes longer. And that's the value of these integration questions that I'm finding, is that I'm moving through it a lot quicker, and then noticing when patterns start to repeat themselves and loops start to reveal themselves, and take a conscious step to breaking the loop. So this infraction point about my size, it's not one that comes around daily, but maybe it's significant enough I mean, it is significant enough to address and flip the script and create a different belief. I'm inherently safety. I'm inherently safe. Safety is built into masculinity, which is built into presence. And so there's an inherent safety that I hold in just being a man that women don't have. I've come to understand from conversations with them. They feel less safe in the world simply from being a woman. Not something I know, but something that I'm experiencing now, because I'm questioning the safety of the dynamic, because I'm experiencing it through my partner. Not because she's evoking it, but because I'm reflecting it. So that's really fascinating. Just remembering my inherent safeness. Like, a woman feels safer with a bigger man, but I don't feel unsafe being a small man. Like, I don't. Yes, there are bigger men who have a physical advantage over me. Absolutely. But the thing is, that's unless you're the biggest, strongest man in the world, that's always going to be true. And there are so many other factors involved. It's so infinitely complex, the topic of safety. It's not just a direct correlation between size. Yes, that's a big part of it. But I know there are men bigger than me that if push came to shove, I'd back me. Like, I know. I I have a firm belief that I will come out of that scenario on top. And so it's what belief do you want to hold? And so with this integration question, how can your unique way of seeing and being in the world be the gift you came here to share? What do you want to believe? A little side note, a belief is something that we hold in the absence of truth. And it's something that we can hold until we find the truth that replaces it. We can bring conscious awareness. When I can bring conscious awareness to my beliefs, I have the belief that it can only be for the betterment of being. Okay, so thank you. That's uh where I'm at. What belief do you want to hold? Oh, I am inherently safe simply by being man to hold. I hold the belief that just using my beliefs leads to better being. So you want to be a gift you came in to share. A gift, a gift, a gift. How can your unique way be a gift? There's value in understanding the world through the eyes of another. Okay, so that was I'm still in it. It hasn't um resolved itself because it's a very one-way thing. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to spend 45 minutes reflecting on why I was wrong, to see who I was as a disadvantage. Yeah. And why I'm right to see who I am is an opportunity. Who I am is an opportunity. And it is beautiful. I'm going to sit with this for another 15 minutes, but that's time. If you have joined for this and you're still with, I'm grateful to you for being a part of these musings, this Tantra radio, so to speak, part of the September collective. If you would like to contribute to the conversation, it would make it infinitely more interesting for me, and you'd be most welcome. So until next time, bye, friend.